Queensland Coal Mining Safety and Health Act, 1999 Introduction. This is an abridged summary to assist those studying for their OCE's legislation exam. It is not comprehensive, and it is not a substitute for knowing the legislation. The section number is listed in the heading. Apply each clause to a practical scenario in your mind. This will help your recall of the legislation. If you have any advice, tips, links to resources, or think I missed a section that should have been included, please list it in the comments below. Abbreviations, acronyms, and definitions. ALARA, as low as reasonably achievable. CMW, coal mine worker. ISHR, industry safety and health representative. Operator, coal mine operator, not a worker. SHMS, safety and health management system. SOP, standard operating procedure. SSHR, site safety and health representative. Hire blastability. Drill and blast consulting, drill and blast labour hire, OCE labour hire. Coal Mining Safety and Health Act, 1999. 6. Objects of the Act. Protect the safety and health of persons who may be affected by coal mining operations. Require the risk of injury or illness to any person be at an acceptable level. And provide a way of monitoring effectiveness and administration provisions that relate to safety and health. The objects of the Act are achieved by imposing safety and health obligations on persons who operate coal mines or affect the safety of others at coal mines, providing for safety and health management systems to manage risk effectively, make regulations and standards for the coal mining industry to promote risk management and control, establish a safety and health advisory committee to allow the coal mining industry to participate in developing strategies for improving safety and health, providing for safety and health representatives to represent the safety and health interests of coal mine workers, provide for inspectors and other officers to monitor the effectiveness of risk management and take action, provide for the competencies of persons at coal mines to be assessed and recognised, require management structures so that persons may competently supervise the safe operation of coal mines, provide an appropriate coal mines rescue capability, provide for a satisfactory level or preparedness for emergencies, and provide health assessment and health surveillance of persons who are or were coal mine workers. 11. Meaning of safety and health. A person's safety and health is their safety and health to the extent that is or may be affected by coal mining operations. 12. Meaning of competence. Competence for a task at a coal mine is the demonstrated skill and knowledge required to carry out the task to a standard necessary for the safety and health of persons. 13. Meaning of consultation. Consultation with coal mine workers is discussion between the SSE or supervisors and coal mine workers about a matter with the aim of reaching agreement. 14. Meaning of SOP. A standard operating procedure at a coal mine is a documented way of working at the coal mine at an acceptable level of risk, developed after consultation with coal mine workers. 15. Meaning of accident. A series of events at a coal mine causing injury to a person. 16. Meaning of serious accident. A serious accident at a coal mine is an accident that causes death or hospital admission. 17. Meaning of high potential incident. A high potential incident at a coal mine is an event or events that causes or have the potential to cause significant harm on the safety or health of a person or persons. 18. Meaning of risk. Risk means the risk of injury or illness to a person arising from a hazard. Risk is measured in terms of consequence and likelihood. 19. Meaning of a hazard. A hazard is a thing or situation with the potential to cause injury or illness to a person. 20. Meaning of principal hazard. A principal hazard at a coal mine is a hazard with the potential to cause multiple fatalities. 25. Meaning of SSE. Most senior officer employed by the mine who is located at or near the mine and has responsibility for the mine. 26. Meaning of supervisor. A coal mine worker who is authorised by the SSE to give directions to other coal mine workers in accordance with the SHMS. 27. Meaning of industry safety and health representative. A person appointed under Section 109 to represent coal mine workers on safety and health matters and has the function and power of an industry safety and health representative. 28. Meaning of site safety and health representative. An SSHR for a coal mine is a coal mine worker elected by coal mine workers to perform the role of SSHR. 29. Acceptable level of risk. The operations must be carried out so that the level of risk from the operation is within acceptable limits and ALARA. To decide whether risk is ALARA, the likelihood and severity of harm must be considered. 30. How acceptable level of risk is achieved. SHMS must be in place. Systems must incorporate risk management and practice to identify and assess risk, avoid unacceptable risk, monitor levels of risk, investigate causes of accidents and high potential incidents to prevent recurrence, and review effectiveness of risk control measures. 31. If the level of risk is unacceptable, personnel must be evacuated to a safe location and action be taken to reduce risk to an acceptable level. Action to reduce risk to an acceptable level may require stopping plant or the use of substances, and action may be taken by the operator, SSE, industry or site safety and health representatives, coal mine workers, inspectors or inspection officers. 33. Obligations for safety and health. Coal mine workers and persons who may affect safety and health at coal mines have safety and health obligations. The following persons have safety and health obligations: a holder, coal mine operator, SSE, contractor, designer, manufacturer, supplier of plant, an erector or installer of plant, manufacturer, importer or supplier of substances, and a supplier of services. 34. Discharge of obligations. A person with safety and health obligations must discharge their obligation. 36. No obligation in the Act relieves another person of their obligation. 39. General obligations. A coal mine worker has the following obligations: comply with the Act and procedures applying to the worker or person that are part of the SHMS. If a coal mine worker has information that others need to know to fulfill their obligations, they must communicate that information. Take any reasonable and necessary steps to ensure anyone is not exposed to an unacceptable risk. A coal mine worker's additional obligations: to conduct work in a way that does not expose themselves or others to unacceptable levels of risk, carry out responsibilities and duties allocated in a way that does not expose the worker or others to unacceptable levels of risk, conform to the risk management practice of the mine, comply with the safety and health instructions given by the supervisor, SSE, or mine operator, be fit for work, and not do anything willful or reckless that may cause harm. 42. Obligations of the SSE. Ensure risk is at an acceptable level. Ensure risk to persons from plant or substance is at an acceptable level. Develop and implement an SHMS for all workers. Give contractor all relevant components of SHMS required by contractor to identify risks. Give service provider all relevant information of SHMS to identify risks. Review SHMS plans of contractors and service providers and effect change to integrate them with the mine's SHMS. And develop, implement and maintain a management structure. No work is undertaken until the worker is inducted in the SHMS, trained in relevant risks, and trained to perform duties. The SSE must also provide for adequate leadership and control of coal mining operations, the carrying out of critical work that requires particular competencies, adequate supervision and control of coal mining operations on each shift, regular monitoring and review of work environment, procedures, equipment and installations, appropriate inspection of each workplace, including pre-shift inspections, and adequate supervision and monitoring of contractors and service providers at the mine. 43. Obligations of contractors. A contractor has the following obligations: ensure compliance with the Act, ensure compliance with the SHMS, and ensure the contractor's SHMS is not adversely affected by work undertaken at the mine. No work is undertaken until the contractor gives the SSE their SHMS and has made any changes to their SHMS required by the SSE. No work is undertaken by the contractor until the contractor is inducted in the mine's SHMS that relates to the work and has received training about relevant hazards and risks. 56. Competence of supervisors. An SSE must not assign the tasks of a supervisor to a person unless the person is competent and holds the necessary competency if required. 62. Safety and health management system. The SHMS for a coal mine is a single system that incorporates risk management elements and practice that ensures the safety and health of persons who may be affected by coal mining operations. The SHMS must be a single document that forms an overall management system and includes organisational structure, planning activities, responsibilities, practices, procedures, and resources. The SHMS must provide a single, integrated system for the management of all aspects of risks to safety and health. Must be in place before coal mining operations start. Safety and health management systems must be adequate and effective to achieve an acceptable level of risk by defining the coal mine operator's safety and health policy. Contain a plan to implement the coal mine operator's safety and health policy. state how the operator intends to develop the capabilities and support mechanisms necessary to achieve that policy. Include principal hazard management plans and SOPs, containing a way of measuring, monitoring, and evaluating the performance of the SHMS, and take action necessary to prevent or correct matters that do not conform with the SHMS. Safety and health management systems must be adequate and effective to achieve an acceptable level of risk by contain a plan to regularly review and improve the SHMS, and if significant change occurs, plan to immediately review the SHMS. The SSE must make available the SHMS for inspection. The SSE must give a copy of the Principal Hazard Management Plan to any worker whose work is affected by the requirements of the plan and they request it. 63. A Principal Hazard Management Plan must identify, analyse and assess risk associated with principal hazards, and include SOPs and other measures to control risk. The SSE must give a copy of the Principal Hazard Management Plan to a person that employs persons at the mine whose work is affected by the requirements of the plan. 64. Review Principal Hazard Management Plans and SOPs if an SHMS has been developed for a new mine or a change to an SHMS is proposed. Then, the SSE must review the Principal Hazard Management Plans and SOPs with consultation. This must occur for a new mine before mining, for a changing plan before the change. 68. A coal mine operator for a mine must keep a mine record that includes all reports of, findings and recommendations resulting from inspections, investigations and audits carried out under the Act, all directives issued under this Act, a record of all remedial actions taken as a result of directives issued under this Act, a record and report about all serious accidents and high potential incidents, and all other reports or information that may be prescribed. Record keeping term is 7 years. Mine record relating to the last 6 months is made available at all times to CMWs and the SSE. 69. Display of reports and directives. The SSE must display a copy of current directives and reports of inspections carried out at the mine in one or more conspicuous positions. 71. Purpose of recognised standards. A standard may be made for safety and health, stating ways to achieve an acceptable level of risk. 93. Election of site safety and health representatives. Coal mine workers may elect up to 2 coal mine workers to be site safety and health representatives. This may be done for each SSE. The elected coal mine workers must hold the appropriate safety and health competencies to hold the position of SSHR, and the site safety and health representative is performing part of the coal mine workers' duties. 95. Person must be qualified to act as site safety and health representative. A person must not act as an SSHR unless they hold the competencies required. An SSHR must act as a site safety and health representative for safety and health purposes only. 99. Functions of SSHRs. An SSHR has the following functions. Inspect the coal mine to assess whether the level of risk to coal mine workers is acceptable. Review procedures to control risk so that it is acceptable. Detect unsafe practices and conditions at the coal mine, and investigate complaints from coal mine workers regarding safety and health. The SSE and supervisors must give reasonable support to an SSHR to execute their functions. The SSE or representative may accompany the SSHR during an inspection. An SSHR that makes an inspection must make a written report, give a copy to the SSE. If the inspection indicates danger or possible danger, immediately notify the SSE or responsible supervisor, send a copy of the report to an inspector. If an SSHR considers the SHMS deficient, they must advise an inspector. Inspector must investigate the matter and report the results on the mine record. 100. An SSHR has the following powers. To enter any area of the mine to act as an SSHR with reasonable notice to the SSE or their representative, and examine any document relevant to safety and health held by the SSE. 101. Stopping of operations by SSHR. Applies if the SSHR believes that there is a danger to the safety or health of coal mine workers. SSHR may write a report to the SSE demanding cessation of operations, stating the reasons. If the SSHR believes the danger is imminent, they may cease operations immediately and notify the supervisor in charge, and require the supervisor in charge of the operations to stop the operations. The SSHR must submit a report to the SSE about any action taken in the case of immediate danger. 102. If the SSE receives a report from an SSHR requiring the operations to stop, they must stop the operations mentioned in the report. 103. SSE not to restart operations until risk at an acceptable level. SSE must not restart operations that have been stopped by an SSHR until the risk is at a reasonable level. 104. An SSHR must not unnecessarily impede production. 105. Protection of SSHR from performing their function. An operator, SSE, supervisor or contractor must not attempt to prevent an SSHR performing their function or penalise an SSHR from performing their function. 106. SSE to tell SSHR certain things. The SSE must tell the SSHR certain things. Injury or illness that results in that person missing work, a high potential incident occurring, any proposed changes at the mine that may affect the safety and health of persons at the mine, the presence of an inspector or inspection officer if the SSHR is at the mine, or a directive given by an inspector or inspecting officer about a safety and health matter. The SSE must do this as soon as practicable. 107. The SSE must display the identity of the SSHR. Their identity must be clearly displayed in 2 or more conspicuous locations within 5 days of their nomination. 109. Appointment of the industry safety and health representatives. The union may appoint up to 3 persons to be ISHRs after a ballot. The persons must hold a second or first class competency. The appointment must be for 4 years. 118. An ISHR has the following functions: to inspect coal mines to assess that risk is ALARA, review procedures to control risk so that risk is ALARA, detect unsafe practices and take action to ensure risk is ALARA, participate in investigations into serious accidents and high potential incidents and other matters relating to safety or health, investigate complaints from coal mine workers regarding safety or health, and to help with initiatives to improve safety or health. The following may accompany an ISHR when conducting an inspection: the SSE or their representative, a site safety and health representative or their representative. 119. An ISHR has the following powers: make inquiries at coal mines regarding safety or health of workers, enter any part of a coal mine to conduct their functions, examine any documents relating to health and safety held by persons with obligations under this Act, copy documents that relate to safety and health, and require the person in control of the coal mine to assist with the execution of these powers. A person in charge of a coal mine is required to help the ISHR. If the ISHR requires documents, a person with an obligation under the Act must produce them in a reasonable time frame. 120. An ISHR not to unnecessarily impede production. 121. If an ISHR believes the systems to be inadequate, the ISHR must notify the SSE with justification. If the SSE's response is deemed inadequate by the ISHR must notify the inspector. The inspector must investigate. 128. Inspectors and inspection officers have the following functions: enforce the Act, monitor safety and health at coal mines, inspect and audit coal mines to ensure risk to persons is acceptable, assist persons achieve the intent and purpose of the Act, check that safety and health systems are in place to control risk to persons, provide advice and help that may be required during emergencies. If unsafe practices or conditions are identified, ensure timely correct actions. Investigate serious accidents and high potential incidents. And investigate matters that affect the successful management of risk to persons. 129D. Functions of authorised officers. Monitor health and safety at coal mines. Inspect and audit coal mines to ensure risk is acceptable. Help persons achieve the purposes of this Act by providing advice. Check that health and safety procedures are in place to control risk to persons. Investigate serious accidents and high potential incidents. Investigate matters that affect the successful management of risk to persons. Investigate complaints relating to health and safety at coal mines. And investigate whether persons required to supply information to the CEO have done so and that information is accurate. 132. An inspector, inspection officer, or authorised officer may exercise a power in relation to another person only if they produce their identity card for the other person's inspection or have their identity card on display. If it is impractical to show their card before exercising their power, it must be displayed as soon as possible. 139. An officer who enters a coal mine with consent or authorisation may search any part of the coal mine, inspect, measure, photograph or film any part of the mine, take a sample or thing, copy a document, require a person to provide reasonable help, or require a person to answer questions. It is an offence to fail to comply. 140. A person required to give reasonable help under Section 139 must do so. 141. A person must answer questions asked by an officer unless they have a reasonable excuse, such as the potential for self-incrimination or liability to a penalty. If the questions relate to a serious accident or high potential incident, the questions must be answered without regard for an excuse. 151. An officer may stop and secure plant and equipment. This action must be recorded in the mine record, and the SSE must not return the plant or equipment to operation until the risk to persons is at an acceptable level. 164. Inspector may give a directive that a task may only be undertaken by competent persons. 165. If an inspector does not believe a risk from coal mining is at an acceptable level, a directive may be given to evaluate that risk. 166. If an inspector believes that a risk may reach an unacceptable level, the inspector may give an oral or written notice to take preventative action. 167. If an inspector believes that the risk from coal mining is not at an acceptable level, they may give an oral or written directive suspending all operations at the mine. 168. If an inspector believes that the SHMS is ineffective, they may give a directive to review it or the Principal Hazard Management Plan and make it effective. 169. If an inspector believes that the SHMS is ineffective, the inspector may suspend operation. 170. If an inspector believes it is necessary to preserve evidence after a serious accident or high potential incident, a directive may be given to preserve the site. 174. If an inspector, inspection officer, or ISHR has given a safety directive, they must enter it into the mine record as soon as reasonably practicable and state the reason for the directive. The person given the directive must comply as soon as is reasonably practicable. The SSE must enter the action taken to comply with the directive as soon as reasonably practicable after the action has been taken. Copies of directives must be made available for inspection by CMWs. Directives remain in place until withdrawn by the issuing person or a court. 179. A person must not state anything false or misleading to an inspector, inspection officer, authorised officer, or ISHR. 180. A person must not give a document they know to be false or misleading to an inspector, inspection officer, authorised officer, or ISHR. This does not apply if the misleading or false nature of the document is disclosed, or if it is reasonable to obtain the correct information to then pass that on. This also applies to making false or misleading entries in documents required by the Act. 181. It is an offence to obstruct an inspector, inspection officer, authorised officer, or ISHR. 198. As soon as practicable after becoming aware of a serious accident, high potential incident, or a death at a coal mine, the SSE must notify an inspector and an ISHR. The SSE must, as soon as practicable of becoming aware of the accident, incident, or death, convey the primary information to an inspector and IHSR. Primary information is location, time, number of casualties, if there was a fatality, if it was a serious accident or high potential incident, name of any witnesses and who was present, names of any persons injured, if there were no witnesses, the name of the person who found the injured or deceased person, and a brief description of the accident. If the primary information is not known, all reasonable steps must be taken to find out the primary information as soon as possible. Self-incrimination is not a defence for not supplying the primary information, and that information may be used in criminal proceedings. If an oral report is made, it must be confirmed by a written notice within 48 hours, or in the case of a fatality, within 24 hours. As soon as practicable after receiving a report of a reportable disease, the SSE must give an inspector and ISHR notice about the disease. A person prescribed by regulation who becomes aware of a CMW that has been diagnosed with a reportable disease must give notice of the diagnosis to the Chief Inspector. 198A. For conducting an investigation into a serious accident, high potential incident, or death at a coal mine, an officer may require a person to supply them with part or all primary information. It is an offence to fail to comply with this requirement. Self-incrimination is not a defence against supplying information unless the person was involved, and the information requested is the brief description. 199. As soon as practicable after receiving a report of a serious accident causing death, an inspector must inspect the place of the accident and investigate its nature and cause, and report the findings to the Chief Inspector. 200. A person must not interfere with a place at a coal mine that is the site of a serious accident or high potential incident. It is not interference to take action to prevent further injury or death. 201. If there is a serious accident or high potential incident, the SSE must investigate and determine the causes, prepare a report about the accident or incident with recommendations to prevent recurrence, and, if the accident or incident is prescribed, forward the report to an inspector within 1 month. The SSE must ensure that the place of the accident or incident is not interfered with until all relevant details have been recorded and, if possible, photographed. Measurements have been taken to develop an accurate plan of the site, and a list of witnesses has been compiled. Self-incrimination is not a defence against complying with this section. 221. Mines rescue capability is the ability to provide a suitable number of trained personnel and maintained equipment to allow continuous rescue operations to take place, and to help the escape or safe recovery of anyone from an irrespirable atmosphere. 223. A coal mine operator must be a party to a mines rescue agreement. 226. Mining must not occur without a mines rescue capability and agreement in place. 268. A person must not encourage or influence by any means a coal mine worker to refuse to answer questions asked by an inspector, inspection officer, authorised officer, or an IHSR. 272A. Children under 16 not to operate or maintain plant. 273. Withdrawal of persons in case of danger. If a coal mine is dangerous, all persons exposed to danger must withdraw to safety. If a competent worker can eliminate the danger from a hazard, that worker must do so. If a worker is not competent or able to eliminate the danger, they must take reasonable measures to prevent danger to other coal mine workers and immediately report the situation to their supervisor. A competent person must be appointed to assess the danger from the hazards that has caused the withdrawal of personnel. Re-entry to the dangerous area must not occur until the risk is at an acceptable level. The minimum number of personnel required to reduce the risk to an acceptable level may re-enter the dangerous area if appropriate precautions are taken so the risk to those persons is acceptable. A coal mine is taken to be dangerous if sealing operations are to commence, the mine or part of the coal mine has been sealed, or the controls in the Principal Hazard Control Plan have not been implemented. A coal mine is not taken to be dangerous if sealing operations are being undertaken in an emergency and an inspector has been notified. Sealing operations are being undertaken following written acknowledgement from an inspector that sealing operations comply with recognised standards and good practice. As soon as practicable after being appointed, the person appointed to assess the danger from the hazard must do so. The SSE must notify the inspector of any action taken under this section. 274. If a worker believes that there is immediate personal danger, the worker has the right to remove themselves to a position of safety and refuse to undertake a task that may place themselves in immediate personal danger. The worker must not be disadvantaged for taking this action. If an alternative worker is directed to undertake the work that the original worker deemed too dangerous, the alternative worker must be notified that the original worker exercised their rights under this clause. 275. A person may personally or via a representative report an alleged contravention of this Act or a thing or practice that is likely to be dangerous to an inspector or inspection officer. The inspector or inspection officer must then investigate.